Yeah, something a little bit different today. A new Waterford hospital, Brian, was one of the three big-ticket items put on the back burner as a result of the new provincial budget brought down recently. That delay has caused outrage amongst some mental health advocates. The Waterford Hospital has a long and difficult history. Over the years, politicians have made many promises to build a new facility to better serve its sick and vulnerable inhabitants. Mark Gruchy has had enough of empty promises. He is co-chair of the Community Coalition for Mental Health. Here are his thoughts.
April 30th, 2015 was just another day in the long march of a centuries-old tragedy in Newfoundland and Labrador. And it wasn't a surprise. It has all happened before. On that day, we were told we were just going to have to live with the continued operation of the Waterford Hospital. For another 10 years, possibly. Because the wind had changed. Too bad. It's just too bad there was no easy, concentrated package of votes to be gained by keeping a promise to improve the lives of desperate human beings. It is too bad that the Conservative government didn't have the basic sense to save money for a rainy day. They didn't even have the courage to say the project was cancelled. It's just paused. Presumably there must be a belief that the mental health community and the people of Newfoundland and Labrador are fools who can be coddled with uncreative euphemisms. There must also be a belief that this should not be taken for what it is, profoundly insulting. It's really too bad we have been promised a new facility for the last decade or so. It's really too bad Williams, Dunderdale, Davis, the whole lot enthusiastically proclaimed the imminent demise of the Waterford, promised it, pledged it, nodded sagely on it. Jerome Kennedy, the long-departed brains of the entire Conservative outfit, championed it. It's all really too bad. But to quote Dr. David Atwood, they started closing this place in 1971. We have been up and down over this road for 44 years. That's more than a lifetime for many. Lifetimes that have been spent whiling away the hours caught on the sharp edges of that statue of stigma and pain. Lifetimes spent desperately grasping for some thin comfort in the even thinner cracks in the edifice. When Kathy Dunderdale bid Jerome farewell and spoke her famous blood beating off the cabinet room floor quote, fondly memorializing their time together, he went quietly. The new Waterford will not. Indeed it will come. Kicking and screaming into the world like a child if necessary. It will come. At this point, it is without question that some old bureaucrats will bristle at the implications of the above. They will speak of partnerships and stakeholders and alliances and going forward together. All of that. All that has been said 1,000 times before by people long forgotten in the history of our home. They will say that somehow the Waterford is a special project while simultaneously brushing it aside as if it was a culvert. The more things change, the more they stay the same. In the year 1900, a man identifying himself as a, quote, friend of the lunatics wrote a letter to the editor in the Evening Telegram describing how he had witnessed the inmates of the Waterford Hospital being forced to dig a ditch to get a water supply to the building. He wrote, "Is it fair to the inmates of that institution to have them wading in water, digging over a half mile for this supply? I say it is not, and the person in charge ought to be brought to account for his conduct." The lunatics of the year 1900 dug the trenches to bring water to the hospital. They brought it to life. What a creative partnership. The lunatics of 2015 are not digging trenches. We are in them. We stand on the backs of the labor of those tortured men, and we do not forget them. We do not forget what was done to them. We will be digging no more trenches because those who are responsible for the health and well-being of the people of this province fail. We will work in an entirely different way. We are raising this issue to such a level it will become impossible for any politician to turn away from the project. It is you who will dig the trenches this time. We are not the mentally ill. We are the electorate. The day is rapidly approaching when yet another death will not produce yet another inquiry. There will be no more Luther inquiries. There will be a march. There will be candles. There will be portraits, and there will be tears. We no longer require friends of the lunatics to speak for us. We speak for ourselves. We speak for our families. And you are standing in the way of our emancipation.
St. John's lawyer Mark Gruchy is co-chair of the Community Coalition for Mental Health. His editorial on the Waterford Hospital first appeared in the Independent newspaper. We asked Mark to share a version of that editorial to our VOCM listeners. Tomorrow we will hear more of his commentary. The Waterford Hospital closing since 1971. Good morning, Brian. Well, we want to continue our special series. Construction of the new Waterford Hospital, as we all know, has been delayed by the budget. For some of us, that's just something else in the line of the provincial budget, but for others with family or friends at the Waterford, it is a deeply personal and troubling announcement. St. John's lawyer Mark Gruchy is co-chair of the Community Coalition for Mental Health. Here he is now with part 2 of his commentary. The Waterford Hospital closing since 1971.
The Waterford Hospital is no longer a hospital. It is the symbolic embodiment of everything that has gone wrong with our society's conceptualization of mental illness and mental health for generations. Its continued existence validates stigma. It is a spiritual blight on the soul of Newfoundland and Labrador. It is harming people with mental illness in this province. It is a retrograde, obsolete, offensive, backward institution with methods to match that is not fit for modern human beings. The new facility we were promised was to be built to implement the recovery model, the dominant model of modern psychiatry. The recovery model starts with the premise that the served person is a human being. This is the emphasis: humanity. We are not disease carriers. We are human beings. To this end, the new facility was to be the equivalent of modern facilities enjoyed by our fellow Canadians on the mainland. It was to have private rooms to replace the crumbling wards where the misery of people at the lowest point in their lives mixes together through the night. How unreasonable we would want our own room and bathroom, our own key to enter the room, our own sense of safety and security. The new facility was to have a dedicated art gallery with the means to sell same to the public. It was to have a cafe. What foolish ideas. Never mind that these activities have become completely common endeavours of mental health organisations in our province. They are normal and expected. The new facility was to have natural lighting. And what good is that? None at all, I suppose, to a thoughtless person looking in, but it means the world to those inside. The new facility was to eliminate the line between the community and the hospital as much as possible. It was to break down the physical barrier that sustains the barrier of the mind that causes so much pain. We will break down the barrier if you will not. We will render it impossible for this state of affairs to continue, and your barrier will evaporate. The new facility was to have a museum. What good can possibly be achieved by remembering anything of the past of that place? And that is the entire point. There is much to remember. We will not have begun to leave the old world behind until the day when all people appreciate what was done on the road of good intentions to their fellow human beings through the years. The foolishness of ego will be swept aside, for this is owned by no one. We have collectively failed for well over a century to grapple with this problem. They will be memorialized. The new facility was to have a monument over commemorating all of those who suffered and died on that lovely piece of real estate overlooking the park for so many captive dark years. People without names, people who left this earth the way a lost animal might. They lived and died from the beginning through the 30s and 40s while a man across the sea had resolved to kill every bipolar and schizophrenic he could find, using the same logic espoused by some of our own citizens. There will be a monument, and I will bring my child to that monument and will tell them what happened. I will tell them what we used to do to people. I will tell them what we no longer do, and I will tell them that if he grows up to be bipolar like his daddy, he does not have to be afraid, because people who care about him made a world where he is safe and loved. This will come to pass, because one thing has changed. The lunatics are not running the asylum. They are running the world outside. There are more of us outside now than inside, and we are calling to our brothers and sisters within. A part of us is in there with them. We will not abandon them, and we will not forget them. We will lean upon the walls in our numbers until they fall. We will continue to change the culture from the outside, and they will be with us again, outside, for that is where the change is coming from. They will be remembered.
St. John's lawyer Mark Gruchy is the co-chair of the Community Coalition for Mental Health. His editorial on the Waterford Hospital first appeared in the Independent newspaper. We asked Mark to share a version of that editorial with our listeners.